You may have noticed in the last week or two in particular, a lot of stories in local media and from around the globe about the fact that this is the hottest year ever in records. Whenever records were taken, the world is as hot as it has ever been. We are burning up. The planet is on fire. It's past the tipping point. Greta was right. Al Gore was right. God damn it, we've thrown it all away. And I have been wondering why suddenly, particularly in the last fortnight, this flurry of climate change angst in our news media. I've also been looking and seeing reports saying that, actually the world hasn't warmed for 13 years. This is all El Nino and natural weather patterns. And someone I know keeps an eye on this stuff, and we've had him on times before, and he's talked a lot of sense, is independent investigative journalist Ian Wishart. And I thought it'd be nice to get Ian back on and see if he can unpick why we're currently in a flurry of pearl clutching on climate change. Ian, welcome back to the platform. Nice to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Sean. How are you?
Very well. Look, Emma, is it just me, or has there been a flurry of new concerned stories about climate change?
It's all fake news, sadly, and you didn't expect any different answer. Basically, what happened is that a group of university students and scientists in the States came up with the idea of measuring the daily temperature of Earth, or claiming to measure the daily temperature of Earth, and feeding it to the media as the hottest day in 125,000 years. And unfortunately, it's all mostly based on computer models, and the only hard data they have goes back about 40 years to 1979. So the it's been the hottest it's been since 1979. That's all we can officially say. Apart from that, the last 125,000 years, they don't have the science to measure what it was like on a daily basis for the planet at all. They don't have that data. It's just
okay, and that's just one day, one point in time, not the average temperature or average heat.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Basically, the scenario is it's very much again a media propaganda exercise. They're looking to leverage the climate change debate and make everyone feel that it's out of control, as you've alluded to in your intro. And they're using fake data to do it. Again, I've got to emphasise the point. The satellite records have only existed since 1979. That's the only planetary monitoring we've had of daily temperature. And that's since 1979. It doesn't go back to 125,000 BC.
Okay, or even 150 years back.
Even 150 years back, and there's some interesting stuff coming out of that, because 150 years ago we were going through similar warming periods, and the glaciers were melting 150 years ago.
Okay. What about this claim I read somewhere that, in fact, the world's average temperature hasn't gone up for 13 years? Yeah,
there is a bit of a pause on at the moment. It's up and down a little bit, but it's go through stages. And what was interesting, I'm working on a new book on this subject, pulling all this stuff together. And in doing the research of that, I've been looking at climate trends over the last sort of 1,000 years. And our debate is currently centred on the current modern warm period, as they call it, the fossil fuel age. But if you go back about 300 years ago, that's when the planet actually started warming up. And we had lost most of the glaciers in the world by around about 1900, 1920. Only the hard core glaciers have remained. They were talking about climate change big time in the late 1800s. And moaning about the fact that Greenland had lost a lot of its glacial coverage, and Norway had lost a lot of its glacial coverage, and of course the glaciers in New Zealand were retreating at the same time as well. So there's been warm periods, and if it was warming 150 years ago, then it wasn't being done by fossil fuels and SUVs.
Yeah, okay. All right. Ian, is there a particular reason that people need another bout of climate change alarmism right now? Is there something happening in an international forum? Do you think perhaps that they're losing their ways, that the great shining lie of climate change is in, if you like, the age of the climate change alarmists is ending?
I'd like to think so, but these people are not in it for the climate change science, they're in it for the power. And climate change is just the horse that they're riding to the finish line. The reality is that they're intending to make the people who are funding the climate studies and funding these university teams to create these headlines are intent on creating a situation where they have an economy and a world political system that's favourable to themselves and their interests. And so
who are those people, Ian?
They're effectively, you'd call them elites. They're political players.
No, I just want to know who they actually are, though. Have we got names? Have we got a list of names?
We do, but I don't have them at my fingertips. Basically, they're groups and people who you know, the foundations of this world, the Careys and the others, the Rockefellers. They all have very much ethical guidelines and goals, and they have set out in their various foundational papers of the last century, you know, particularly since the 1970s when the climate change larks really started catching on, how they needed to focus and get a thing that they could create a system where effectively that what they wanted is a world government situation.
Okay, so are there members of this group in New Zealand, of the elites in New Zealand?
Yeah, there are, and people have bought into it.
Have you got their names?
Oh, again, not at my fingertips, but I've covered them in the book Econ and Totalitarian to some extent. Basically, if you look at the groups like the foundations out of the USA and the like.
No, but I'm looking at the people here who are part of this elite who are manipulating.
Let me give an example. Most of our political leaders are being fed climate data and training that's emerged from Al Gore's training workshops. Gore set up in the 2000s a system whereby he would train climate influencers around the world, including New Zealand, to spread the climate change messages.
Okay, so who are the ones in New Zealand who've been to the Al Gore training camp?
James Shaw, for one.
Yeah.
Some of our media journalists from Stuff and other.
Okay, which ones? I am just interested in those names.
I've got some of them in the new book, but I don't have them.
Okay, you got to get them to me. Is Mark Dolder one of them?
I don't know whether he's attended, but he certainly fits the description. Basically, what these workshops are doing is they are engineering the media and the politicians to feel that the climate is the absolute be-all and end-all, and that must be promoted alarmingly all the way through. And that the facts don't necessarily matter. It's more the impression that the public are left with. And so there's very much a propaganda message that comes out of these workshops, and they're held in places like Brisbane and Sydney and Eastern Texas and so forth around the world. And Gore does them, I think, 2 or 3 times a year, and has normally up to 1,000, 1,500 participants in each session. And these people then go out, they're the ones who appear in the media as commentators. A number of our neuroscientists and so forth have been on these workshops. It's all about communicating climate change alarmism. It
sounds like a cult or a pyramid selling scheme.
Well, it comes back to this old standard of follow the money and follow the power. So what you're looking at in these things, and as I said, the goal is to establish conditions that are favourable to the people who are behind it. The people who are behind it, if you look at the money, are the climate industrial complex, and that is industries and companies and investment firms who stand to leverage money out of taxpayer subsidies and of the change to green energy away from oil energy or that sort of thing.
And so it's all highly coordinated.
Yeah, well, it is, because if you don't have to look very far. If you just look at the workshops that are held every single week around New Zealand, around the world, all of these things are intertwined into them. And so the themes that come out of it, Al Gore's workshops, for example, the people go out from that, they have people from the climate change lobby groups, the Gretas of this world, and so forth.
So there'll be computer records and memos and stuff in between all these conspirators in New Zealand.
Yeah, there are. I mean, as I said, working on the new book, I've got some of them in the book. There's various emails and memoranda and news reports and so forth.
I await them with interest.
Yeah, but getting back to your main question, the issue is that at the moment the temperatures are nothing to be panicking about. We've had higher. I mean, and the part of the problem is that the old temperatures from the past are being erased. So, as an example, out of Europe, if you Google highest temperature in Europe right now, the record is 48.8 degrees Celsius from Sicily a couple of years ago. In actual fact, the highest temperature I could find on record from the old newspapers is 51.1 degrees in Spain 100 years ago. So the old temperatures, the highs have been erased, and we're now being alarmed by these people
To create that atmosphere of fear.
to create the atmosphere of fear.
Yeah.
It's all of these things, they all reduce back to one thing: money and power, and that's been the age-old human motivator. This is just the horse that they're riding to the finish line, but it's just another way of doing it.
Ian, I thank you very much indeed for your time. We will talk again soon. There we go. Ian says nothing to worry about. 40 or 50 years.